Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Brianna Abbott. I'm one of the school counselors, and I'm joined with um, several other of my colleagues, and we are so thankful to have you all here. We are going to get started. As it mentioned right at the beginning, this meeting is being recorded. I'm going to share my screen with all of you so that you can see our presentation. But today we're going to be talking about executive functioning, and we're very thankful to have all of you here. See here. Okay. This is today's presentation as a part of our ongoing Lunch and Learn series. We do about once a month. We have a different topic that we focus on, and it's a quick hit on just kind of a deep dive into one particular subject area with the hopes that gives you information that is helpful and useful to you in a quick little bite-sized bit. On January 10th, we'll talk about the course registration process. We've got some other exciting ones coming up with coping skills, honors diploma, and developing that college list as well. But for today, let's talk about executive functioning. So what does it mean when we're talking about executive functioning? Executive functioning are all of those skills that we have that impact our brain's ability to process so that we can plan, we can focus our attention, we can remember instructions that someone is giving to us, and manage multiple tasks at one time. These are skills that are really fundamental to us across the board. It's not just one particular subject area that executive functioning skills will impact us. In fact, it's not even just classrooms. It's in life. It's for problem solving, decision making, and just those everyday functions. When we talk about executive functioning, there are actually 11 executive functioning skills, but primarily within the school setting, we see challenges most often with these six. Response inhibition, that ability to think before we act. So the person that just does something the minute something happens, they might be struggling with some response inhibition. Flexibility, that when something changes, the plan changes, being able to bend and move with that as opposed to that rigid structure. Task initiation, sometimes it's hard to get going, to get started, to initiate into that work that they're trying to do. Emotional control, obviously this is a big one. Being able to regulate your emotions, to manage what you're feeling and how that's impacting your ability to achieve your goals. Focus and attention is something that we see often in our high school students. That can be something I suspect many of you have seen at home, where you'll tell them to do something, they'll say that they're going to do it, but they're focusing also on a video game or something else that's making it hard for them to sustain that attention. And then, of course, organization, being able to stay organized, have a system that works for them for doing their tasks and projects. A lot of the reason that we have the challenge with executive functioning is because of our brain. For kids, that frontal lobe is not developed, and that's where a lot of that executive functioning lives, is in our frontal lobe. But these are skills that can be taught. It's not something that we are innately born with, but we can learn the skills. We can learn strategies to help ourselves improve our executive functioning skills so that we can be more successful in applying those in different ways. And so being able to focus on understanding that this is literally a part of our brain that isn't yet developed fully, but that we can help build those pathways is a really helpful piece of that awareness.
Okay, so the first of the six executive functioning skills that we're going to highlight here today is known as response inhibition. So you saw me, or you heard Miss Abbott go into it just briefly. I know I see this all the time in my 2.5-year-old daughter, who really struggles with this. But at the end of the day, it's really the ability to think before we act and managing our impulses. So while my 2.5-year-old daughter struggles with this, I know a lot of us and our students struggle with this or have struggled with this in the past. And particularly when we're feeling those big emotions, that can also create or hinder that ability. So, what can we do about that to help develop that skill? Well, the first is to develop the Take Five approach, which is to really help our students build self-awareness. So, the first one is to be here. So, practicing some of those mindfulness strategies, whether it's breathing or grounding exercises, but to really be present in the moment. The second is to be with. So, identifying how it may impact others around you, or maybe taking other perspectives, using like appropriate supports, things like that. The third of that take five skill is to be calm. So utilizing those calming and emotional regulations techniques to really help identify and then manage those emotions. So building those coping skills. The fourth is being strong. So knowing that we are resilient and can move forward through difficult moments and bounce back, building those resiliency skills and utilizing appropriate skills to move through those situations. And then the fifth of that take five is monitoring or to being changed. So monitoring, modifying our experiences. Other things that we can do is to just be patient with our students and give explicit reminders frequently, or ask the student to maybe speak through their plans before really engaging in tasks. Then here we have a list of things that the student can do themselves to help them develop this specific skill. Because, having specific academic or behavioral goals can help students really focus on those goals and what it takes to achieve those goals, reduce some of those impulses, and even practice like pausing, and taking a minute before reacting. We also know that organization, building a routine, those kinds of things can also really help with concentration, focus, impulse control, so on and so forth. In the next slide, here we are talking about flexibility. So, as you can imagine, this is the ability to shift, change plans, kind of go with the flow in certain things when given new circumstances, new information, things like that. So, while routines can be very helpful, sometimes when those routines become too rigid, it can be really difficult to shift when necessary. And as we know, we're often shifting in life and need some of that flexibility to move forward, to have that resilience, things like that. So, when supporting our students, we can do a variety of things to help promote flexibility. For instance, providing structure, and providing various prompts during like new situations that can be unsettling for students can really be helpful in helping those students navigate flexibility with some of those structures and supports in place. Giving students notice or like reminders if we know that a change is happening in the future, so that they can practice flexibility in like a supported environment. And then additionally, giving breaks to students can also, of course, help as they're developing that new skill as well. Okay, so then when learning flexibility, some things that the students can use are these variety of strategies that we have listed here. Because shifting and going with the flow can feel really challenging for a lot of us. So sometimes students will need to lean into their coping strategies to help manage some of the dysregulation that might come along with change, because change can be really hard for just humans in general. So going with that flow and building that flexibility can be a challenge. But building their toolkit of coping skills, calming strategies, breathing, those things can certainly be very beneficial. Also, celebrating their wins is super effective, particularly because it builds that confidence and shows them, like, hey, you've been able to be flexible before. I know it feels scary, but you are capable. And so when they feel confident, they can promote that positive self-talk and have the confidence to be flexible in the future. So then the third skill that we talk about is task initiation, which is exactly what it sounds like. The ability to start a task or an assignment, a project, so on and so forth, in an efficient time without too much procrastination. And I know I can be guilty of that sometimes too. Procrastination can be very tempting. So some things that we can do to really help in this area could include a detailed list of steps for whatever that task or project could be. So like I know if on my to-do list I have like write paper or finish this assignment, that can feel really daunting. So it's hard for me to start that because that sounds like a lot of time, effort. But if we can break that bigger project down, so say it's writing a paper for your student, maybe breaking that down and saying, okay, find two resources that you can find to support your claim for that paper. That feels like a lot easier and a lot easier to like bite off. And if it feels easier and more approachable, it's easier to start that task. Using structure with timers or setting time limits to help set expectations can also be really helpful. And just having a conversation with your student just to kind of talk about the things that you're noticing so that you can workshop together what could be helpful to help you get started in these tasks or these to-dos. So awareness is always helpful in developing that skill. And finally, here is a list of some skills that the students can practice to help, avoid procrastination and really start to initiate tasks. So, a routine allows students to know, what to expect, when to expect it. If I know that from 4 to 6 every day before dinner, I know that that's my time to sit down at my desk and do schoolwork, then that just kind of becomes something that I do every day. And it's easier to initiate because it's something that's part of my routine. Prior to starting something like homework, it may be helpful to maybe take a 5-minute break, get a snack, listen to some music to kind of get pumped up. Maybe partnering with a friend to help build accountability or kind of be like somewhat motivating, creating challenges and competitions. And then ultimately, I think it really comes down to just like a conducive workspace. So making sure it's free of any kind of distractions, particularly phones, screens, TV, that kind of stuff. And even making it cozy, like lighting a candle, maybe getting a blanket, something that like makes that working environment exciting to be in, but also productive.
All right, I'm going to take over the second set of three that we're going to talk about with you today. And I think you're going to find, or you probably already have found listening to Sarah, is that they can overlap in how they show in our students, as well as the strategies that can help in them, because it's executive functioning is the overarching. These are little pieces, but they obviously overlap in how we manage and live our lives. So if you notice repeats, that's why, like they're connected. And some of us do some better than others. Some of us are impacted by all of them. And I think the key is that, as Brianna said, the frontal lobe is still developing in our students. So you may see some of these not exhibited in your students at any given time. What we're really trying to do is maximize their ability to use these skills because they are so impactful in the academic environment. And some struggle more than others. So we want to make sure you guys have those tools. So with emotional control, doesn't mean that we don't want our students to have emotions, but it's the ability to manage those emotions to achieve goals. So when our emotions are not managed and regulated, then they impact our ability to achieve the goals that we have for ourselves. Teenagers that can be managing it well means that they can manage a couple of tests and a game and still perform well. Those who struggle might have those big outbursts, have difficulty accepting feedback, or having a response to a situation that is disproportionate to that situation. What we can do as the adults are to clarify those expectations for our behavior. So it's not that we don't want them to have those emotions, but how we behave with those emotions, like expecting appropriate behavior. How can we help them and ask them that question? How can I help you bring this down to a manageable level? How can I help you problem solve these big emotions that you're having? Modeling emotional control and regulation in ourselves. So it's very hard for us to help our students regulate when we are not regulated ourselves. So take that moment or two or three to make sure you're in a space to be helpful as opposed to exacerbating it. And then it is hard to regulate our emotions, big feelings in this world right now. So helping and praise that growth when they do things um, to manage what they're feeling in order to accomplish those goals. Praise that growth and development in this area. Students can learn to name their emotions. So we know in kindergarten we learn happy, sad, we learn the basics, but emotions are very broad and overlap. So I think of the movie Inside Out. Like the first movie teaches you the cores, and then as the character is developing, they they have more complex emotions. So helping them name that and helping them recognize what they feel like connecting the body, mind, and emotions. So when I'm feeling anger, this is my physical sensations. When I'm feeling intense sadness, this is when I'm feeling confused or embarrassed, like those nuances. Am I embarrassed and anger is coming out, or am I hurt? Like helping them name it, then helps them learn how to manage with it. Practicing calming strategies, mindfulness meditation, um, grounding them so that then they can deal with truly those emotions and then move forward with a plan. Time outs. So teenagers, it's okay to teach them that if I stay in this moment, I'm going to make things worse versus taking that moment to do some deep breathing, do some calming, figure out what I'm feeling, figuring out what needs to happen in order for me to move through this in a healthy way. And then managing expectations. So a lot of times we get these big emotions when we are expecting too much of ourselves, too much of somebody else, too much of the situation at hand. And then those emotions come with it. So helping them manage what's expected in any given place or the goals they have for themselves. You can turn. Sustained attention. We expect this a lot in the traditional school setting. So students who find this challenging really can be impacted by it. But it's the capacity to keep paying attention to a situation or a task despite distractibility, fatigue, boredom, lack of interest, things on the outskirts. In teenagers, the ability to pay attention for an extended period of time in a class, at home, to do homework with just minimal breaks. When it becomes the breaks are longer than the focus, that can be where it's impacting. Missing key details, easily distracted by sounds, by motion, not being able to take in a lot of information. And as we know in school, that's pretty impactful. What we as the adults can do is provide that structure for them at home. We as the adults in school can help provide that structure, helping them break large tasks down and then teaching them how to do it themselves so that they don't wait till the last minute or they don't miss key components in the assignments and the tasks. Encourage them to have those less distractions, just like Sarah said for the ones before. If we create that environment where they are allowed to focus, then they can start building that ability to pay attention longer. Encourage breaks, but structured short breaks. Again, not making that be the norm. And then patience and persistence, like the grit to build and develop the attention and stay with the task at hand. And what they can do is they're teenagers, help create that distraction-free environment, like outlining what distracts them and then making sure they create the environment that doesn't. So not having the phone, not being in the kitchen if it's an open house with the TV in the living room going on with my younger sibling. Music with words, my basketball in my bedroom that I'm going to shoot. Like if they know what distracts them, then removing it. With technology, there are some benefits to technology, believe it or not. There are some apps out there that can support. We've given you 3: Forest, Focus Mate, and Self-Control. Forest helps teens stay off their phones by growing a virtual tree in the app, so it allows them to see visually with that growth. FocusMate provides virtual co-working spaces to help teens stay accountable with each other for sustaining that attention. And Self-Control is a website blocker that can prevent the distractions on the phone while studying. And then rewarding themselves. We reward ourselves for things. And those of us employed with a salary, we are rewarded with that pay. So it's not a bad thing that the students are seeking that reward for doing a job well. And those who struggle with this, building in those small rewards, when I do this, then I get this, can be really helpful because it is hard. So organization. So organization, I actually feel a little bad being the person who's sharing this. I had a student in with me before we started, and I was decluttering my desk because there were just piles. And I was joking with them that I was giving a presentation and talking about organization when my desk was not organized at the moment. So again, things ebb and flow, but for our students who this is always a struggle, we want to help them develop those skills. So the ability to create and maintain systems, keep track of things, both information and material. So organizing and locating their sports equipment. Making sure my son is organized in his hockey bag. Like that's a skill that it takes to develop. So messy rooms would be indications that they might struggle with this. In their book bags, if your student's book bag is overflowing and their binders are not organized, that can be an indication that they're struggling with this. So we can encourage them with weekly maintenance and cleanup. So the longer something stays disorganized, the harder it is to reorganize and realize what isn't necessary or misplaced. So weekly cleanups, making it known where things go. A lot of times we assume that it makes sense to us where things should go, but helping the students understand where things should go or helping them create a system for what works for them and then making sure that they maintain that. And establishing routines can keep that structure for organization. And then what students can do. So teaching them to keep records of assignments and due dates. And that looks different for students. For some, the planners work, for some electronic, for some color coded, and others, the color coding becomes the distraction. So figuring out what works for them, but then doing it. Regularly organizing those school materials. That includes the book bags as well as the notes and the things, the binders and things, and setting goals. Using digital tools, we've listed 3: Evernote, Google Keep, and Todoist. They allow students to keep track of things and organize things. Cleaning their room regularly. Again, the chaos then can create the mental chaos, so keeping that structure. Asking for help. If you struggle in this, asking for help when it gets out of control for you and you just don't know where to start. That task initiation coming back in, and then building those good habits at the onset is something that they can do for themselves.
Okay, so now that we've kind of reviewed those 6, we kind of just want to point out these common developmental traits. So through an author by the name of Chip Wood, he wrote a book, Yardstick: Child and Adolescent Development. And these next 3 slides kind of highlight what are the skills developmentally that our students should have. So by age 14, our students physically, they need a lot of exercise, they need snacks, they need more sleep. These are just essential for our students to be able to kind of successfully then function and do these executive functioning skills in their day-to-day life. These, again, 3 slides are just pointing out most likely what you're seeing in your teenagers. So when you look at ages 15 to 17, you're going to notice they're more concerned about their body. You as your parents, their caregivers, really pointing those things out to them, that will be taken very deeply. That could really affect them in a way that maybe we don't understand because our frontal lobe is developed and theirs is not. So some of the things social emotional that they're doing, they're looking for that deeper connection. They're making commitments. They're really trying to secure good friends and they understand the meaning that in their lives in a way that maybe they didn't before. So again, we highlight these 3 slides for you just to have an understanding and to kind of review what it is you're seeing from your teenagers. And again, we as professionals here in Worthington, we've been learning about executive functioning, and these were some slides that we went through that we really just thought were beneficial. Our students in high school, they are looking to put on that adult hat. They are looking for someone that's going to talk to them about consequences in a more adult manner and provide them opportunity for those conversations where they can grow and you as their family can understand them on a greater level. So those are the purposes of those 3 slides that you see. Ideally, then, here you are as a parent, you've come to this lunch and learn. We wanted to just provide you some ways that you are going to best support your students. So as we know, they are still developing and they need us to provide things for them when it comes to these executive functioning skills. So first and foremost, just demonstrating through your everyday life. Oh, look, they see me using a calendar. Oh, they see me making a list. Those are just modeling those executive functioning skills that our students really do need. Creating that structured environment for them, allowing them to understand, I, as your parent, am going to place boundaries on your screen. That's important for me so that I can help you best succeed. Teaching time management with those timers, alarms. Again, they see you model that, you do that for them. Let's take 20 minutes to prepare for your social studies test tomorrow. It may sound very archaic and old school, but let me set a timer on the microwave. When that's done, let's talk about what you learned. Encourage that self-reflection. Focus on the effort, not always the results. That's huge for our teenagers. Providing those opportunities for practice. I think sometimes we as adults, caregivers, school counselors, we want to solve all of the problems. Well, that's not necessarily going to allow for learning. So swooping in and just solving it for them, they're not going to understand all of the steps that it took. So allowing them to fail, processing through that failure through practice is very important. Promoting self-advocacy as well. Just a very small example of that here at the school counseling lens, like if it's a student problem, have the student email. That just looks so great for us to see those concerns coming from a student rather than the parent at the high school level. So promoting them asking for that help is huge. Helping them to manage their self-regulation. So again, you're teaching those coping skills, you're talking through it. We've talked all about those calming strategies. They really do make a difference. And then celebrating those achievements. You see them learning, you see them growing. Oh my gosh, a month ago, your room looked terrible. I didn't even remind you, and you did it this month yourself. Those little simplistic things really do make a difference in the lives of our teens. So these are some hopeful takeaways as to what you could be doing as a parent. And then lastly, this is just a quote. Children do well if they can. If they can't, we adults need to figure out what's getting in the way so we can help. So this just kind of goes back to how Miss Abbott started. These executive functioning skills, they're not just there. We all have the ability to develop them, but you as the adults in their lives really do have to step in and help grow these skills when needed. So that was just a nice way to kind of reiterate that to you as families. So we are happy to take any questions at this time, and we can provide you with some answers and thoughts. Our next Lunch and Learn is on Friday, January 10th, which seems forever away, but we'll be here before you know it. And it's going to be all about understanding the course registration process. So again, if you have questions, concerns, something you would like to add, we can go ahead and do that.
And if you want to type questions in the chat, we'll read those out and then share them with everybody, and give you those answers. And that way we don't have people speaking over top of one another. But we're so glad that all of you are here and and participating in this with us. So the question was, will these slides be posted on the website? Absolutely. We're going to post a recording of the presentation that we're giving right now, along with the slides. We share that on the counselor website. So that will always be on the wkhscounselors.com website. There's a link to that from the Worthington Schools website. But if you wanted to see it, it will be on the front homepage of the counselor website. Sometime, maybe today. It could be, it's a little bit crazy around here. It's another college deadline day today. So it might be up today. It might be up over the weekend or on Monday at the latest. So we will have that information posted and shared for all of you to access that from the counselor website. Other questions you all have? I know that we're at the time, we always try to make these run and be super efficient so that you can eat your lunch and get some information and then keep moving with your day. But if you have questions, we're here and we're willing to answer them. If not, thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you again in January.
Thank you for this topic. Very helpful for me too.
Great.
Yeah, we all need those reminders.
Oh, thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. I just saw something in the chat. If I would summarize,
Thank you so much.
For sure. Structure, plan, schedule, make it a habit, allow breaks, be kind, celebrate the wins, grow the pattern. Yeah, and for sure, those are the things that are really helpful to kids as they're trying to learn these skills and build a new pathway in their brains for how to manage and navigate. Yeah, so make it a habit. Yes, that habit piece is a part of that. So. All right. We're so grateful to have all of you here. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. You too.